Well, hello and welcome to the 182nd episode of the Adoption and Fostering Podcast from the A&amp Network with me, Al Coates, and his good self,
Scott Casson-Rennie, who was going to introduce himself as something completely different, but can't remember what it was. So anyway, yeah, go on.
The bearded wonderkind.
No, I can't remember.
Adoption's answer
Can I correct your German there?
Wunderkind. You can. Wunderkind.
We're getting heckled from the
he's
audience.
Not even introduced yet. Haben Sie einen Zimmer frei? And we have with us the exuberant, the voluptuous, the voluminous Phil Watson. Hello, Phil.
Hello, everybody.
That's an introduction.
Come on,
voluptuous.
Give us a question and we'll crack on. I like voluptuous. I do. I don't get that as often as I used to.
Oh, I'm loving this. You can see I was just squirming, thinking, "Oh,
it's going to be one of those nights."
Go?
So I've invited Phil. Phil came on the podcast a long time ago. I remember because I recorded in a travel lodge in Leeds in lockdown. There you go. That's how I remember it.
What were you doing in a travel lodge in Leeds in lockdown?
Some things I can't tell you, Scott.
I was just going to say, is that not against the law or something? I don't know.
No,
I mean,
I was totally. No, Phil and me weren't in the travel lodge together.
I mean,
no, we weren't together.
No, I guess that. But I'm saying, what were you doing traveling during lockdown? Was it the proper lockdown, or was it just a kind of half lockdown? Or I'm intrigued.
Right,
I'm still traumatized by lockdowns.
If you want to know, I was doing my NVR advanced practitioner training in Leeds, and we were
face to face in person. What is this?
It was this huge room, and there was 12 people, and there was like 18 foot between each people. So it was like a meeting of the Illuminati, because it was like all tables, chairs around, and then there was had to be a set distance between us. And we all sat there with Peter Jacobs at the end, saying wise things, and us all going So it was anyway. In the evening, I did Peter. Anyway, sorry, not Peter. Phil.
You what?
Phil. Hello, Phil. Let's try and keep this on track.
Yeah, you two are incorrigible. There's another word.
Oh, dear me.
Well, Phil, introduce yourself for us. I have ways of introducing you, but I'm not doing very well so far.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. My name is Phil Watson. I'm talking to you from near Penny Lane, world famous Penny Lane in Liverpool, although I'm not originally Scouse. I'm from a place called London. I came up as an economic refugee in 1989, and I've never moved. I'm married and to my wife, Helena, and we have two birth kids who are now 19 and 22. And in 2011, we started fostering for our council. We ended up adopting one of our foster kids. That's a wonderful story that I might end up telling again because I love it. And for the last 8-9 years, I have promoted fostering, trying to find foster carers for Liverpool City Council. And I do a little bit of work with some adoption agencies and some other fostering councils and agencies, chipping in about how you can foster, how you can adopt, how you can make foster and adoption work as best as possible for everyone. And I am also a German teacher, which is why I will correct any of your German that is incorrect, which is why you never want to say Wunderkind because it's a... Anyway, never mind.
You should hear his
French.
Never mind,
no,
actually, you shouldn't hear his French.
Yeah, I'm a French teacher as well. So yeah. So if you want to talk in French, very hard to explain adoption in French, fostering in French. The concept does not exist. Anyway, let's move on. Go on,
the best conversation I've ever had online with Al was when I started to speak French in a tweet, and he was just like, I have no clue what you're saying. Now, I had... I did French at school and I got quite great results, but obviously that was 50 odd years ago, so it's very rusty now. But I do sometimes now and again just try to bamboozle them with French, so that's good to know. I'm glad I've got a bit of a...
I am partial to a little bit of German, if I'm honest with you. I mean, I'm not great at it.
Yep.
But I do.
No, you've shown me that.
I really enjoyed German at school, and I did. So if you were in the clever set, you had to do German and French, and I really enjoyed German to a point, and then it just became incredibly complicated. It was like fine, and then it wasn't fine, and that's
somebody introduced you to adjectival endings, didn't they? Adjectival endings and different words for the, and that's where you need to quit. Very difficult beyond that. You made a right choice, Al, to become a social worker. Well done.
Excellent. Well, and so this is like there's a few hurdles before then. This is like herding sheep. So I'll tell you why we've invited Phil, because if you can follow Phil on Facebook, or Twitter, because you are just hilarious. You are just constantly.
Thank you very much.
I laugh and laugh and laugh, mainly in terms of how you account of your relationship with your wife and how you met her and how you're doing her a favour by marrying her. It's all very tongue in cheek. But
I was going to say, I hope it is tongue in cheek.
It's very tongue in cheek. But you are relentless in your enthusiasm for fostering, and I thought that is really it's infectious, your enthusiasm. And I just thought it would be wonderful to get you on and kind of talk through your experience of recruitment, because I think we're at a point of is it overstating it saying it's a national crisis? Is that
we lurch from crisis to it's never been this bad. And I think at the moment, I mean, I'm not a mathematician, but the number of kids going into care has gone up and up. The numbers I know, when I first started promoting fostering or recruiting carers for Liverpool, I was handing out merchandise like bookmarks and little cards saying, Liverpool has 900 children in care. And that was in 2015-16. And we're now up to, Liverpool now has 1,500 kids in care. So it's not quite doubled, but it's gone up massively. And it's not just Liverpool, that's across the country. And we could talk about it later, but there are certain parts of the country where the numbers of kids in care has gone up far greater than others. So shall I do some numbers? And these are in my head. That's how sad I am. Basically, if you are in a poor urban area in the north of England, the chances are you'll have far more children in care in that area than anywhere else. So Blackpool has the most children in care. And the reasons for this, two reasons for this, is I think they've got 190 per 10,000 kids. Liverpool's at 160. And if you're listening from somewhere nice, like the lowest is Kingston upon Thames with 30 kids per 10,000 in care. So it's far less, far fewer. And the reason is poor areas have more kids in care. And also rich areas are basically exporting their children to poor areas because housing is cheaper. So if you are from a leafier, posher part of Surrey, you don't have as many kids in care, and the ones you do have, you find a way of, through agencies, through private fostering agencies, moving those children to areas where housing is cheaper. So if you know Blackpool at all, it used to be famous for going on holiday and bed and breakfast and hotels, rows and rows of streets off the strip at the front, and a lot of those houses have now got children in care living in them. I've got a bit of a thing about private fostering agencies, the profit-making ones. I don't think they're generally good for children. That's getting all a bit deep and meaningful straight away. But the number of kids in care is going up. The number of mainstream foster carers is not going up. And in fact, it's shrinking slightly. And I don't think this is good. Was that the answer to the question? What was the question?
Yeah, I'm not sure really, but it's quite a good one. I like it.
I was just thinking, considering you're not originally from Liverpool, you've got a bit of a twang going on there. So that's what I was thinking.
Well,
nothing else.
Come to Liverpool and it isn't. Come to Liverpool and you realise it isn't very strong at all. My accent.
Oh no, I have friends who are from Liverpool. Yes,
you know that. Yeah,
I do know.
Yeah.
Oh yes. So is it because we've had other organizations and foster care agencies and all that sort of stuff on before. So has there been a really big decrease in the number of people fostering and a really massive increase in the children in care, or is it just that there's more children in care, less foster carers?
I think the number of kids in care is going up very high. It's going up very quickly. That curve would be steep. The number of children in mainstream foster care, or the number of mainstream foster carers, so that's people like us. We foster children with whom we have no contact, no link at all. That number has gone down. Now, I'd be very interested to know, because the number of kids in kinship, I always call them kids, I hope everyone's okay with that. Kinship care, so family and friends, that number's gone up. And I can't help thinking that that's probably a good idea, because my understanding is a child with some sort of, living with some sort of birth family, so auntie, nan, uncle, granddad, or a family friend, has got to be a better deal than suddenly arriving at Phil Watson's house, to whom we are complete strangers. So the number of children in family and friends used to be called kinship care, didn't it? We call it family and friends now. That's gone up. And I think that there's quite a few charities that are promoting that and talking about their own situation and why there should be more support for kinship care. Because it's, putting it bluntly, I'm not a kinship carer, but it's a much more emotionally complicated situation.
Yeah.
How much, if you are legally looking after your grandchild and you have social worker involvement, part of you must be thinking, and I've been on panels, and everyone else listening has been on panels where you have kinship carers, foster family friends carers coming along, and you have to be approved by these professionals, these social workers, to look after your own grandchild. That's got a sense of, it can be quite patronizing, can't it, I think? At the same time, you'll then get financial support, you might get therapy support, other forms of support, which is wonderful. And if we're going to have that, then there needs to be a degree of legislation and a degree of organization. So it's a very emotional topic, and it's very hard to go, this is the best thing for each child, because of course, I think there's 82,000 kids in care. I always, every time Liverpool, and I'm not a Liverpool fan, but every time anyone plays in a final in Wembley, I think all the kids in care would fill that stadium. And some of them would still have to sit in stairwells. And you're thinking, that is a big number of kids. And each one of them's got their own story. Each one of them's got their own hopes and dreams. And all the statistics say your life is not going to be as good as it would be if you weren't in care. I mean, I know there's lots of wonderful exceptions. You see Samantha Morton, when she got her BAFTA the other day. Yeah. And I was like, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I'm going, unfortunately, you are the absolute exception, and that's heartbreaking.
Yeah. Phil, can I ask you what your school reports were like? Because you are like just...
Talks too much in class, I would say.
We started at one point and you kind of, just, all the way through I'm going, oh, that's a good question. Oh, that's a good question. That's a good question. What are your school reports like?
Well, probably he talks too much and he doesn't keep to the point, which is interesting because as we've established, I'm a language teacher, German and French. So if you remember, every now and again, you used to do a speaking exam, and those were the bits I liked the most, because basically most people were terrified of them. And I was like, chuck me in, ask me the first question in German. And after 10 minutes, there's no oxygen left in the room. The teacher's going, just shut up, as they're trying to press pause on the cassette machine.
Make him stop.
Make him stop. Yeah.
So there's lots of... It is, yeah, and I would love to be in your and fly on the wall in your annual appraisal. If you have such a thing.
They don't want me anymore. I'm banned.
So there was lots of things I wanted to unpick there that you said. In terms of kinship care, going right the way back, you sort of talked about the dwindling stock of foster carers. So I'll ask a few questions. You can answer them in whatever order you want. You talked about this dwindling stock of foster carers in local authorities versus I think at least a static stock of in IFAs, independent foster care agencies. Do you think that then reflects... Hang on. Yeah. No, don't start. Right. Okay. Sorry. This is crazy. So do you think that's a reflection then on the quality of support families are getting, foster carers are getting from local authorities? Don't hold that one. Hold that thought. Right. Okay. The second thing is, in terms of kinship, do you also think that the rise in kinship, one of the criticisms is that it's a cheaper option? And we had Dr. Paul Shuttleworth on the end of middle of last year talking about there's this natural presumption that kinship is right. It's like a kind of default position. We all go, well, that makes perfect sense. He said, but question mark, is it? And so do you think it's just it's a really convenient way of going, yeah, this works? So there's three questions, but probably you're going to say what you want anyway.
Yeah. What was the first question again?
Fostering stock.
Yeah, I think there's a I don't know about any data, and I'm not very good at data generally. I try and read it because I have a gut feeling and read government reports and go, I thought that was going to be the case. I think, generally speaking, when you foster for your council, I think that is a very good moral choice, because there's no profit involved at all, and it's the councils that the council social workers with the legal system that will remove children, that will have the children in their care. When they can't find a mainstream foster care of their own, then they go to an agency, generally speaking. Like most people, we've only ever worked for a council, and I'm very proud and pleased to work for our council. However, I know plenty of foster carers that I'm involved in recruiting that move to agencies, and one of the reasons they move to agencies is, people think it's the pay, But actually, more often, they go, if we take these children to an agency, we will get better support for them. We will get therapy more quickly. We will have mental health support more quickly. And I cannot understand how we've created a system where that's the case, but I totally understand that. And if somebody said to me, well, you've said to anyone, you can do exactly the same job because you'll be looking after the same kids. And you will get paid more, and those children will get more support, and therefore you will get more support. Why wouldn't you do it? And I do work for council. I think it's very, very good. And I think I work for council with very good support, great social workers. But at the same time, I just like people who foster, people who are involved in this world of ours. And I just think, you know what, if you work for an agency and it's working for those children, brilliant, 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 brilliant. Your
Good
second
answer.
question was something about, I don't know, mainstream kinship care. Well, I don't know as much about that, but one thing I've noticed is people like us who are mainstream foster carers, we are differently motivated. We seek out that we want to foster. We'll go to some event online, or we'll go and Google, and then we'll go to some kind of drop-in event that I run, or an information event, and we're motivated by wanting to care. I think it's generally true that kinship carers fall into it. So they discover that a child in their broader family, their wider family, can't be looked after by a child. And so they feel perhaps obliged. And I don't want to speak for kinship carers because I'm not one, but they end up doing it just because there's a child and they feel they should. And I kind of feel that there is a moral imperative there. Sometimes I've met kinship carers that have then gone on to foster as mainstream, actually, which is interesting. But I do agree with you that I think there is an assumption that kinship is best, and quite often it's a correct assumption. However, sometimes I think it's motivated by money because it's cheaper. And then what's fascinating is when you see kinship carers who are nudged towards going to an SGO, a special guardianship order. And I'm thinking, is that because you want to save money? Is that as a council or an agency, or is that because you think it's best for the child? And it's a really difficult decision to make. So we adopted one of our foster kids. And you could argue that that was a ridiculously stupid thing to do because you get far less support. At the same time, it's great because you don't have social workers coming round to your house to visit you when you've got an adopted child. So to cut a very long story short, one of our foster kids was being extremely quiet. They had a very long journey with us. I'll just say that because I don't want to talk too much about him personally. But he doesn't mind me telling this story because he loves it. One day he's been very quiet. He's about 8 years of age. And I went into the lounge to find out what he was doing, because that's what you're meant to do when you're a mainstream foster carer. And he pulled the frame off a family photo and he punched out the glass, and he got hold of a felt tip, a Sharpie pen. And it was a photo of me and my wife and our birth children. You know, the sort of photo you get when they start school. So it was all done professionally. And he added himself. There's a little smiley face with little arms. And he added himself to that photo. And we had a little chat. And I'm not a psychologist, but it was fairly obvious that this was a little kid who wanted to join our family. And he saw that family photo and he wanted to join. So I'll say this. He'd been adopted before and it had broken down. So he knew what adoption was. He knew what it meant. He'd been to the court before. He'd been through it before, and it didn't work for various reasons. So him saying, more or less, I would like to be adopted by you, was a very brave thing. And also, it was an informed decision. It wasn't informed by watching Disney films. So we decided to adopt him because he asked us to. We were very much aware that as adopters, you're on your own. Yeah. And I think that's where quite a lot of adopters struggle, is because, I know, I don't know whether you and Scott have got an experience on this. You sometimes get, because I work with some adopters, heterosexual couple can't have children, try IVF, that doesn't work. And then they go and apply to an adoption agency or their council, and then a social worker comes around and starts poking through their lives and starts wanting to know who they are, whatever. And by the time they get approved to adopt, their journey of infertility through to adoption is several years long. And then a child arrives, and it's almost like the expectation is enormous, which is lovely, but sometimes I don't think we necessarily prepare people very well to be adopters, because sometimes the children there's a sort of myth, isn't there? Oh, if you get them young enough, they'll never remember. And every adopter and every foster carer will say to you very quickly, just because they don't remember doesn't mean their body doesn't remember. I mean, the trauma in utero. I mean, I spend my life, I train teachers as well, going and saying, do not think because this baby was removed at birth that there will not be some trauma inside their brain and their body. So I wonder whether, God, interrupt me. God, try it.
No, I'm going to interrupt you because you've strayed too far from the original question. So it's fantastic what you're saying.
He's got a lot to say.
A man with a lot to say. I remember the last time we interviewed you, I had to stop you halfway through and go,
I wasn't there. You say we. I wasn't there.
It was part of the adoptive conversation. So it's way back here.
So,
I'll put a link to it so you can tell the story.
I don't do such menial tasks.
He's got a man who does that sort of thing for him.
Yeah, you.
Scott, you were going to ask a question, weren't you? I think we've got a little list of questions we run through. So Scott.
We have, and I think that it's all to do with this recruitment thing, because I think that you've explained what you do for the council and stuff like that, and in my younger day, I used to spend a lot of time in Liverpool, and I know that Liverpool is a city that's.
What were you doing in Liverpool?
I'm not telling you, because then that would be that was a previous life. That was a previous life.
Right, fair enough. I spent a week in Liverpool once.
I was 19. So many years ago, Al. Come on. Oh. Anyway, you're distracting me. Don't distract me. You know what I'm like. If I lose my train of thought.
I think we're going to have to name this the distracted wandering issue.
Yeah, absolutely.
Episode.
But anyway, so knowing Liverpool and how much it's regenerated,
a lot of it has.
A lot of the city is now, it's been regenerated. But do you feel that there's that kind of in Liverpool specifically, because that's where you kind of try and recruit and stuff like that? Do you feel there's like a real understanding of what it is to foster, and if that's the case, then why? I don't want to make this sound like I'm dissing what you do, but why are you still struggling to find foster carers?
Well, we are struggling, but then so is everywhere else. So we find about 20 a year, something like that. 20, 30, it can be as many as that, can be a few fewer. And if you look across nationally, that's a very healthy number. Why do we struggle? Why does everybody struggle? I think because it's really difficult.
But in the terms of you having, I'm going to say, in the terms of you needing 1,500 children in care, 20 is
nothing.
Are you even standing still?
No.
Are you? Yeah.
No. And I guess I don't want to say the finances are interesting. To find one foster carer, if that means you don't go to an agency, or that means you don't put a child in residential care, because those things are so expensive. People may have heard the numbers of 5, 6, 10 grand a week to keep a kid in care. Well, I don't earn very much money, but I love what I do. So I just know that every time one child has a place to live that's in mainstream foster care, I am paying for myself. And I think it's a really good question. Why don't people foster? And there are various reasons for it. If you wanted to do a Myers-Briggs analysis, because a few have been done of foster carers. So basically, what's the psychology of a foster carer? One of them is we're highly relational, so we like people. You like kids, but also you don't mind social workers coming around all the time. Number 2 is you're very, very flexible. So, little example, a child has arrived at our house at 3:30, and we have not known anything about them. And we've gone, well, we know that they're safe in our house. We know we'll find them food, and we'll find them clothes that they want, and we'll keep them safe, and we'll hopefully convince them that they are safe. And all the other questions about what about school, what about family, what this, we're flexible enough to go, we will deal with that later. It's quite an unusual character trait to have, because most people like a degree of organisation in their life. And the third thing is foster carers tend to have a streak of justice. People think we're all lovely and cuddly, but if you cross a foster carer with regard to the care of their child, you often get this ferociousness. There's somebody laughing on this. Scott, is that you? I just described you. I'm very easygoing until you cross one of the children that I'm caring for, and I just think it's just not fair. It's a matter of justice. That kid in care, no fault of their own, never the child's fault when they go into care. And you go, I will fight for you. The kid can drive me mad, but I will still fight for them, fight for their rights, for what they're entitled to, because they are just a small child with very little voice of their own. And when they do deign to use their voice, people say, well, it's not very convenient the way they're, expressing themselves, because it tends to be through a degree of anger. And I was thinking, if what had happened to that kid had happened to you, you'd be angry. Why are you surprised? So it's a good question. It's difficult to find foster carers. It's not paid terribly well. People think you're lovely for doing it and you're a saint, but it's still not necessarily certainly not regarded as a professional role, I don't think, and it doesn't pay as a professional role, and it's not kept up with things like the cost of living and the increases in gas, electricity. You tend to have your kids at home more, and things like that are expensive. And so I don't think it's very well paid. And I think if you do Google, you get an awful lot of stories in newspapers about foster kids doing terrible things and children in care doing terrible things. And I don't think that necessarily helps. I could go on about that some more. If anyone can ring in and tell me how to find more foster carers, I'd be grateful, because no one I know has got the solution to that.
Yeah, but I think you've hit the nail on the head there in terms of advocacy for these kids. And the reason I was laughing was because I remember, before in actual fact, it was the very last thing I did in the UK before Brexit happened. And I mean, literally a day before, I did a training session in Wales, and then I was getting the ferry back to Ireland. And I remember it so vividly. But anyway, the reason I was laughing was because it was training for foster carers for county council in Wales. And what struck me, and I've spoken to foster carers who've adopted, I've spoken to foster carers, blah, blah, and it's always struck me that foster carers are fighty. They're very fighty. And I don't mean that in a negative sense. I just mean that, when I was a foster carer, I used to have to go on the training, the agency provided and all that sort of stuff. And it always struck me how just, not necessarily angry, but just how fighty foster carers were, because they just wanted the best. They just wanted the best for the children that they were looking after, because they really believed in the kind of, and the outcomes for these children, I guess. And maybe that's one of the things that's missing from, not necessarily from the people that are coming forward, because obviously the people that are coming forward, but maybe it takes a specific kind of person to come forward to be a foster carer. My husband, Tristan, bless him, always on about us fostering again. I'm like, I just couldn't.
Really?
I can't. I just can't. I'm still wrecked from the last time, to be honest with you, and that was 2014.
You're dashed upon the rocks fostering.
Yeah, but he's constantly on about it, because he is I'm not saying that I don't advocate for my kids, but he's a fighty one. He would be the one that would, he'd be heavens, in. Yeah, absolutely. So I think it does. It's just, it does need that, a certain type of person. Maybe, there needs to be some psychology behind recruitment at foster care.
Yeah,
we say, are you this person? Yeah,
it's almost like I try and target, if I do at all, are you already working in a caring profession? So are you already working in the charitable sector, the NHS, teaching, something like that? There's more of a chance that you're going to be involved in caring for other people, and financial remuneration is not your primary goal. But I think it's also interesting to think about retaining foster carers, and why do you leave? Now, quite often, in my experience, councils and agencies are so busy managing the problems that they've got of children and budgets, they don't actually have time or the resources, the person to say, right, you're leaving. Can you tell us why you're leaving? Are you leaving fostering? Or are you going into another agency? So, for example, because of the work that I do, what's it called? The algorithm. I was about to say amygdala. That's another issue, isn't it? The algorithm.
That's a different podcast.
Story. Yeah, the algorithm on my social media is forever sending me adverts to foster from agencies. So I got one the other day for 52 grand a year. Foster this kid. I've even had one, the best one, or the most financial, £150,000 a year, to look after a young person who was on a deprivation of liberty. And I thought, a doll, do I want to turn my house basically into a single occupancy prison? Because that's what it seemed to be asking. So I think there's this money that's thrown around, and it's important that foster carers are paid. But this is where the rumours come that foster carers are incredibly well paid, which I sometimes go, I don't know where that comes from. It's not true. And if you do, if you are being paid £52,000 by an agency, I wonder how much they're charging the council. But I also would imagine there is no way you could have any other kind of job or life if you were being paid that sort of amount. So retention is interesting with regard to money and being lured to other agencies, shall we say. But I wonder as well is how many people who foster get burnt out. There are allegations about what they do, and they're often they have to be explored. Of course they do, but it's very stressful. And if they're unfounded, which is often the case, you go, I don't care. I'm not doing this again. I'm going to do something else, something where I can literally come home, shut my front door, and the world doesn't come in. And that's the peculiarity of fostering, isn't it? Is that, working from home. Yeah. Foster carers have been working from home forever. It never, ever ends. And again, there's another issue about, I don't really know whether what the terminology should be, but you're thinking some foster carers goes, I just need a weekend or a day or an hour or whatever it is. And, we call it respite, which is a horrible phrase, really, for a child. Hello, I know we're committed to you and we like you and we love you and we're going to advocate for you, but we need a weekend off from you. Although actually you would say that to your birth kids. So it's almost like, let's not, but I wouldn't say to my birth kids, we need respite, you're going to grandma's, but you go, you need to find a way. So one of our kids, he basically went to family as a sleepover and friends as a sleepover. And he went, this is brilliant because this is what our birth kids did. And we've just got it with him because he's been with us such a long time and he feels very comfortable with granddad and with grandma. But it is an interesting question. Why is it so hard to recruit? And why is it so hard to retain foster carers? And how well do we treat them? And I think, Scott, you've really hit a nail on the head there, which is advocacy. And I think quite often foster carers are poorly treated by professionals. Yeah. And I've got Chuckman, I'm a teacher. I'm a secondary school teacher in a school in Liverpool. I'm not academically intimidated by social workers. My wife is a lawyer, so she really isn't. She isn't intimidated by anyone, and so especially not me. So sometimes when we've gone into the odd meeting, I don't know, whatever it would be, what do we do with the pupil progress money? What are we doing about here? And I'm thinking, and I'll go in, and I'm quite, as you gathered, I'm quite chatty, interactive. I'm going, I will talk you into submission, but my wife will go, point of order. You've just broken the law, and I've recorded you doing it. And so we want foster care is a very, very skilled role, not just looking after children, but understanding how education systems work, understanding how the NHS works. How do I get my child as high up the CAMS list as possible? There's an awful lot of advocacy. It is not a lay person's role. It might have been considered that once, but we talk about it becoming professional, and you go, then you need to pay people. And also you need to listen to them, because nobody feels more disheartened than we know that we know that you know this child better than anyone, but fundamentally we're not going to listen to what you say because we think we know better. And maybe you do know better, but you need to at least say, give us your input. Scott, you may now, no, not you, Scott. Al, you may now talk. Yes. This is like, I can cope with 30 year nines. You two are easy.
Dankeschön. Haben Sie einen Zimmer frei? No. Do you? It's really interesting you say that, because when I qualified just over 10 years ago, my first job was as a supervising social worker, which is the role supporting foster carers. Yeah. And I worked for a small independent foster care agency that was a charity. It had come out of Catholic Care, and they really kind of helped me understand that, forgetting the money, because they were not money orientated at all. It was all about the quality of care for children, and they were really sort of invested in the notion that the biggest asset we have are our foster carers. Now, you could say, well, that's from a from a financial point of view, people will maybe see them as a cash cow, but I think that they didn't. They saw them very much as, if we don't have foster carers, we don't have anything. And it was instilled in me as a social worker was, your job is to advocate for your foster carers. That if there's a fight to be had, you go and you talk to your foster carers and you go and have it for them. That you protect them from stupid emails and nonsense professionals. Your job is to stand as a barrier between them and the rest of the world, and you're like a snowplow. You clear the way before them so that they can concentrate on looking after children. And I just reflect on then having worked with several agencies, some of which got me sacked from, but that's too soon. But anyway, that's another story. That isn't always the case. That sometimes that in local authorities that foster carers are just seen as part of the workforce.
Yeah.
And so that was maybe a comment, not a question. But my question to you is then, how did you get into the job of becoming the foster? Like you said, you've worked for all these years as doing recruitment for Liverpool.
Well, yeah. It's simple, isn't it? And to some extent, is no council and no agency has solved the problem. No one has got so many foster carers that they can easily match the right child with the right home, shall we say. So one solution that the head of children's services came up with, who did vaguely know me, was we need to find a foster carer to talk about what the role really involves. And I applied because I was a bit sick of teaching and I wanted to become more involved in promoting fostering, because I just think it's important. It's as simple as that. And it's that sense of, it's a sense of justice and a sense of identity. I want to do something that I think is worthwhile, and I think it is worthwhile what I do. It's got intrinsic value. So I applied, some other people applied, and I got the job. And I got to say, I know quite a lot of councils and agencies do use foster carers on an ad hoc basis. I'm relatively unusual in as much as they pay me, I'm 70 hours a month, something like that. They pay me to promote fostering. And I'm very clear at the beginning, you must not pay a foster care recruiter on anything other than a sort of wage. Do not pay them on results, because you do not want to convince people to foster when they shouldn't foster.
Are you on the clock now?
No, yeah, well, I might do. It depends how this goes. It depends if I slag off my council. No, I love working for them, and I think all the things you said, my experience of being with our council is very, very positive. But it means when there's an event and they go, Phil, have you got anything to say? And the answer is always, oh yeah, you try stopping me.
Yeah.
But I will
French
always,
or German or English.
Yeah. I will always say this is a good thing that has happened, and look at this really bad thing that was really challenging, but we've solved it, or we are solving it. And occasionally I'll have somebody who maybe works in marketing or works in finance going, do you think some of your negative stories put people off? So on one occasion, I was in a very fancy place in Liverpool, and I rolled up my sleeves at the beginning. There was about 100, 200 people there. Some foster carers, some wanting to foster, some social workers, the lot. I rolled up my sleeves and went, we're going so well with our kid that we're looking after. I've not got a bite mark or a scratch mark on my arms. That's how calm he is. And every foster carer in the room nodded and went, nice one, lad, as you would in Liverpool. And then somebody said, do you think that would put people off? And I went, we need to put those people off, because if you decide you want to foster because you've got some sort of savior complex, although I have, you want to get an MBE for
easy.
This somebody's anyone can get one of them. You foster.
No, apparently not.
I'm to wrong there. But if you foster 200 kids, I'm going, brilliant to you, brilliant. But actually, what you need is that sense of justice. That means I will stick, unless it gets absolutely impossible and too dangerous, I will stick with this kid, and I will do what Sally Donovan's book, whatever it takes. I will stick with this, whatever it takes. Which, just like you said, Scott, and I think you used the word fighty, and then you use our bolshy, and you get. I think there's a what Scouse word? Maybe it's a common word, narky. I'm just like Aggie. I'm like, I will keep going. I am dog with a bone. And I thought I was a really easygoing, casual person, and I'm about some things. But when it comes to justice, I'm just not. And I have not yet got bored about talking to people about fostering. And years before as a teacher, I was an export sales manager, and I used to sell Yeah, I know. I used to sell filing, graphic arts filing, office filing, and it was like I loved the talking, but I wasn't interested in the product. And now what I do is I promote, if you like, a lifestyle that I think is remarkable. I think it's great for children who get good quality foster families. And a lot of the families that I talk to, and I want to say family, I mean in the loosest sense, single, married, gay, straight, don't care. I do talk to people that I thought years ago, wow, you're young, you're in your 20s, you're professional, and you want to foster. Brilliant, why not? You're a single person, why not? Brilliant. These families, any of them can foster. And I think that's wonderful. And I really enjoy promoting that lifestyle, but I don't want people to engage in it. And maybe this is the problem with recruitment. I do not want you to engage in the fostering process unless you really understand it, which is why I think it's good that somebody who lives the life does it.
Yeah.
And not marketeers that I work with are brilliant. They're really good, and social workers are brilliant. But at the end of the day, it's 2 a.m, I've had the kid in my face telling me to F off and I'm not his dad. And they haven't. And so I can say, this is what happened, and this is what we did to calm that child and to sort of try and dissipate that fear. I'm a firm believer that anger is always fear dressed up as anger. And so that's how I got involved in it. And this is a little bit sad as well. I do work with some of the same people that I started with. I don't think it's because of me, but the turnover of social workers is enormous. It's not good for anybody. It's not good for kids. But actually the turnover of even very high up people in councils, head of children's services, they tend to rotate in my experience. And a lot of the ones I work with, they've been brilliant. And I'm thinking, I hope you're going to stay. And then for whatever reason, they move on or they move sideways. And I'm like, okay, we've all got to now reestablish our relationships, get a very relational person. And retention is amongst social workers is probably as tricky as a problem to solve as it is amongst foster carers.
I think, sorry, Scott, if you got a question, because I've got a question.
Right, no, I forgot what my question was because you got first because teacher said so. Yeah.
No, I was going to say, I'm a supervising social worker, and now I've got supervising social workers who I'm responsible for.
Do you want to bring an apple to the table as well? Give it to teacher.
Sure. But one of the things that I think is that social work really struggles with fostering, because I think that if you say to a children and family social worker, who is your service user, right? So we'll use that language. They would go, the child. If you go to an adult, they'll go the adult. And if they go to a fostering social worker, who's your service user? And they will go, child. No, it's not child. It's the foster. And the relationship between a supervising social worker and a foster carer, I think, is a really delicate balance, because actually we need to be friends.
Yep.
But we're not friends. I sometimes need to pick you up off the floor and give you a metaphorical cuddle.
Yeah.
I sometimes need to come around and go, you need to try harder. And that is there's a real nuance. And I might know, if I stay with the same agency for, I've been one agency for 10 years. I've known these people for 11 years.
Yeah.
We're not, and we are friends. We're genuine friends, but I'm still your social worker. And so that is a real, I think it's one of the most complicated roles. And I've had social workers come in who've said, oh yeah, I can do that. I've not done it. And then they kind of, after 3 months, they're going, so who am I again? And who are these people? And it just, it's just really complicated dynamic, isn't it?
I think as a foster carer, maybe it reflects me and my wife, is we are very nice, friendly people. We won't be pushed around. But I've always thought, when we've had social workers come into our house, I've thought, I wonder what kind of day they've had. And I want them to have a good experience of visiting us, if that doesn't sound too patronising. So come to our house. We know that you drink your tea with 1 sugar, and we know you like hobnobs. I'm going to get hobnobs in. And you want to be our social worker now, don't you? But it's sort of like, no, actually, I want this relationship to work. And again, it's quite Machiavellian, if I can now move into Spanish and Portuguese. But it's like I want the relationship with the social worker to work well. So I will find a way, generally, of going, right, I know that you are in a position of authority here. Your title is authoritative, but at the same time, relationally, we can be equal. And if that means I say, I hope your day's been okay, because I would struggle as a social worker. I would find it very difficult to manage all those different relationships. And I guess I see myself as trying to help the social worker, if that doesn't sound a little bit patronising, maybe because I'm getting older. But I do think you're right. It's a nuanced relationship. And I'm going to bounce around even more. Like when I've been on panels, when I've gone to panel as a punter, as a foster carer or an adopter, you feel the power. And they always go, the chair always says, don't be nervous. And I'm like, I'm not easily intimidated by people. I'm going, ooh, but there are 10 people looking at me. So it's a little bit nerve-wracking. And there aren't many people, I don't know if you've done both sides, then you're on the other side of the panel and you go, you have no idea, panelists, what it's like over that side, because however nice you come across, however much you smile, there are lots of eyes on you, and you are only one set of eyes and you're trying to deal with that. And I do think that maybe typifies, however nice we try and be, that typifies the relationship of there's a lot of professionals and there's only you. And there are sometimes, let's face it, you make a decision when you're a foster carer and somebody goes, oh, that wasn't a good decision. And I always want to say, it probably wasn't a good decision, but it was probably the least bad. And sometimes that's as good as you can do.
Yeah. Fair point. Scott?
Yeah?
I was thinking we didn't do our introduction. I had things to talk about in the introduction, but we should say that for the end, maybe an outroduction.
Yeah, we'll do an outroduction. Yeah.
We'll do an outroduction.
Well, it's interesting because you can tell that Phil has never listened to this podcast because he would know that we'd sat on panels and that we'd done it both ways and all that sort of stuff. But
I'm assuming your listeners haven't. But I don't know.
We have committed listeners. But there's 2 things that I picked up from
that. Listeners committed.
Yeah, committed. Yeah. Listen, we've got a listener in Hong Kong, so don't diss our listeners. Anyway, I was going to say, actually, my experience of fostering, and I can say this because I don't foster anymore, was that actually our fostering social worker is a patronising cow. But
just say what you really think, Scott. No.
Don't live in the UK anymore. Don't get paid by the UK. So I can say what I like. But I did find it a very patronising experience. But I think that something you said earlier really struck me, that it's interesting how many people who've adopted go into fostering, but also the other way around as well, fostering into adoption. And I think that actually when you do that, you do it because you're obviously passionate about children and looking after them and making sure that they can live their best lives and all that sort of stuff. But actually the experiences are very different. Fostering and adoption completely different.
Yeah.
As a foster care or an adoptive parent. So that was the first thing. And then the support that you get as a foster carer, I mean, God blimey, when I think back, I do wonder why I did it. Not being funny, because if I'd known how I was going to feel doing it, that day when we got the unannounced visit, we only had one. That was enough for me just to say, actually, do you know what? If you're going to stick your foot in my door, that's what I'm saying by, our social worker, I felt was quite patronising. If you're going to stick your foot in our door because you think we're not going to let you in, I've nothing to hide. Of course I've not.
Did she stick her foot in your door?
Yeah, she literally did. So
no,
yeah, I honestly.
Yeah.
And I had a word with the manager because obviously I got on better with the manager than I did with the social worker. So that says, that says quite a bit. And then I've forgotten my train of thought with my other thoughts there. So
did you really stick a foot in your door?
Yeah,
I can't get over that. Honestly, I would kill a social worker. I wouldn't literally kill a social worker, but I wouldn't let one. I would have one of my staff
But there is that kind of, that hierarchy of all this, doesn't there? That was the other thing I was going to say, actually, sitting on a panel as a parent. So I've sat on foster panels, adoption panels, permanence panels for kinship and special guardians. And that hierarchy, and I always remember one review I had with a particular agency. I won't mention their name, just in case they ever want me back. But I remember my annual review, and they said, "Is there anything that we can improve on?" And I said, "Well, there is actually, and it's not because anybody specifically is doing anything, but I always feel like I'm bottom of the pile when it comes to the discussion, the questioning, all that sort of stuff. Because I'm bringing my experience as a parent, as a foster carer, as somebody who's long-term adopter, blah, blah, all that sort of stuff. But I always felt that when I was making points or want to ask questions, were kind of minimized by the people with the qualifications in the field that we were discussing, whether it's adoption or fostering and stuff. So I think that's a really important thing, and I love that somebody who we've had on the podcast, I can't remember her name, sorry, she runs that organization for panels, for sorting out panels and stuff, and I think that's really needed. It's almost like it's almost like a little kind of what's it called, for panels, what's it called when you join a thing? I'm thinking of the
Facebook
railway
group.
No, I'm thinking of the railway when they have a
union.
That's it.
A sideline.
Yeah.
Signing. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
This is what a brain injury does to you.
Guess what's in Scott's head?
All right. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Not very much, I can assure you. But it's almost like having an agency for panel members, because I think that's really needed, because there is a hierarchy with these things, whether we like to think or not. And I'm sure that, anybody who's listening who's on an adoption panel, just take a step back, your next panel, and just think about the hierarchy of it and how the people might feel, whether it's an adopted person, it might be an adopted parent, could be a foster carer. If you're just think about that hierarchy. I'm kind of thinking foster carers wouldn't really give two hoots about that sort of stuff, and what I mean by that is because bolshy, fighty, the words that we've already used.
Well,
or is it? I don't know.
You've got more emotional involvement as an adopter, I think, going, haven't you? I think when you foster, you want to foster, and it's beautiful. It's a wonderful feeling when you get the approval from a panel. But if you try and foster and you're told, which happens quite often, again, it doesn't matter how acute the need for foster carers is. The standard is the standard. And if you do get knocked back and they go, look, it might be something like your police check, or it might be your property isn't suitable, or it might be you just don't understand this, your emotional intelligence isn't great enough. It's pretty grim, but you can get over that. I think if you try and adopt and you really want that child that you've never met and you're told by professionals you're not good enough, that the emotional investment is far greater, isn't it? And because we all know that some people just have children, they have children that, naturally, and you're thinking, how did they get to do that? And I can't prove that I'm good enough to adopt. It's you're very much putting your emotions on the line. I'd like to say, Scott, I couldn't agree more that people confuse fostering and adoption a lot. And although you end up with a child with whom you have no DNA link, actually the motivations are totally different. And with fostering, there is, by its definition, it's time limited, isn't it? That one day this child will not be yours if they're in foster care. They will age out. What a horrible phrase. Adoption is a different phrase, which was why SGO is such a funny sitting in the middle term, to bring that all the way back to, you get counsel saying, oh, do you want to have an SGO with your grandson? And you're thinking, well, most people don't know what that means. They've never, when I go into schools and talk about fostering and adoption, I go, does anybody know what an SGO is? And hardly anybody does. And I don't think you'll get many kids going, oh, yeah, I'm on an SGO. They might say they're adopted. They might say, oh, I live with a foster family. They might do, probably wouldn't want to. But I've only ever had one kid of the thousands I've taught goes, oh, yeah, I'm on an SGO. And I'm like, oh, really? But they didn't know what SGO stood for.
That says a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah.
One of the things I've observed, so I'm a registered manager for an IFA, is that we often I'll rewind a bit. So I've got a friend who works in recruitment for a local authority, and he talks about one of his frustrations is he sort of does a role like you, that he gets people through the front door, and then he sort of then passes them over to the assessment team, and he gets kind of frustrated that actually there's the range of people we need for fostering is got to reflect the nature and needs of the children that we are. So in terms of ethnicity, gender, sexuality, but not that you need same-sex couples, but you need just society.
Everyone, yeah.
Regardless of anything, but just different types of people, all kinds of flavors of people. But then he talks about the challenges that the local authorities, or the one he works for, is really kind of straight lines. You've got to be a straight line person, and so if someone's had maybe 20 years previously a criminal record, they've gone not going to happen. And do you think there's an element of that people that's holding people back? People going, oh well, I was like this 20 years ago.
Yeah, in other words.
Yeah, thinking they have to be perfect. Yeah,
I think that's true. I think there is people exclude themselves, and I think sometimes they think social workers could be very risk averse, and so would say no. And it's really interesting, is it? Because the famous Form F, and I always say it's not a form, it's a book, isn't it? A form is a piece of paper. This is 90, 100 pages of who you are and why. And I usually explain to people, look, all the questions are totally reasonable. It's just a bit of a shock when they want to know what you were like when you were a child. And I think probably it's a funny one, this, because our assessing social worker, who is retired now, and we got on with her, but after, I don't know if when I went to the skills to foster training, the 3 days we had, for some reason somebody said to everybody, Phil's the teacher, and I am loud. I don't know. Social workers often say to me, "Have you got any diagnoses? And if not, why not?" And I'm going, "It's because I'm 53, and diagnoses weren't invented when I was a kid. You just hit a bit and told to shut up." Right, whereas now I've been on medication, and it was interesting because the social workers described me as being raw. I think she said, "You're very male." And I remember going, and my wife kicking me under the table going, let it go, because as a woman I get that all the time, so it's about time you put up with it. But I did think it was like you said there, Scott, there's a sort of this idea of perfect and a criminal record. Well, it depends what you've done. I remember thinking, am I a bit too loud? Am I a bit too white? Am I too heterosexual? We're quite a religious family, so is that going to be held against us? I don't know what I think about some things. Is that okay? Do I have to have a strong opinion on every ethical issue? Because quite frankly, a legitimate answer to many questions is I don't know. I don't know what I think about that, but I'm pretty sure I can look after a kid. Isn't that what it's about? And I think probably, well, I don't know. This is maybe, I'd have to think if this is a generalisation. It certainly is, but I mean, assessing social workers, there's far more women doing it than men. And I wonder whether, if you are a man, whether you're gay, straight, I don't think that matters. You go, I am being asked lots of questions by a female. I feel less comfortable talking about it. I don't know. I think if you are, you probably need to get over it, but it's possibly a barrier. And I think one thing we definitely try and do in Liverpool, and I think we do it very, very well, is go look at all these different people who foster. And I love the fact that when I hang around with other foster carers, people have no idea, why do you know each other? And one of my favourite friends is she's 5 foot and she's from Somalia and she wears not a full veil but a headscarf. And I'm thinking, when we hang around together, people are looking, going, why is there a big, tall, gobby white man with that nice lady? And it's like we're totally different religions. We would never have crossed paths, except for the fact that we both look after children with whom we have no DNA link. And I think that's a wonderful thing. The kind of, what is the word? Fraternity? No, that's the wrong word. That's male. What is the kind of the great mishpocha? That's a great Yiddish word. The mishpocha, chucking it all in today, kids. The mishpocha of foster carers, and how we, just as you said, Al, we need to represent every aspect of society, perhaps class as well. educated to university degree and gay, straight, because we go, you could be black or white or gay or straight. And I'm going, can you be posh? That's a good one. Maybe I'll do that tomorrow. You can be posh and foster.
If people follow you on the internet, they'll see that every day there's photographs of you with the rich and famous of the world, and you persuading them to persuade people to foster.
If in doubt, say, I mean, I'm as you'll gathered, I'm quite an extrovert, so I'm always looking for what's a moderately amusing but telling post. So yesterday, a team called Liverpool beat a team called Chelsea, and Liverpool was famously full of kids, and so my line was always, these 18-year-olds have only got to wait 3 years till they can apply to foster. Should their football careers fall apart and they don't want to earn £500,000 a month for kicking a ball around, they could start fostering for Liverpool City Council at a level 1 entry salary of about £1. Yeah.
To be fair, if they've got the skills, why not?
Well, there is Mark Wright, who used to play for Liverpool. He was a foster carer, so there is a precedent, and there's a few professional footballers that have been in care. So there's a tiny precedent for it.
I mean, you just made me think there about some of the kind of, I don't want to use the word celebrities, but people who are well known, shall we say, who've said, "Oh, I'm going to adopt or I'm going to foster," and you think, well, that's fair.
Yeah.
As long as you aren't, as long as there's no kind of what's called in terms of
self-promotion.
Yeah, well, because why are you doing it? If you're good at, if you can be a good foster care, a good adoptive parent, then fine, absolutely perfect, no problems with that. There's a particular lady. There's a particular person who's well known, who's a female, who mentioned about adopting one day, and I was thinking, by holy God, I hope not, because the kind of public persona of her wouldn't be the perfect parent. And however, on the other side of that, maybe it would be because of some of the stuff that person has been through and some of the stuff that she's been through with her kids. Mm-hmm. So you don't know. But I guess it's about, I never felt that I got any priority because I was a same-sex couple in 2006 when, it'd just been made legal. Nobody was going, oh yeah, we'll just shove them through. If anything, it took bloody longer. So, that, and I think that's kind of my only concern about stuff like that, is that nobody's treated with any priority or any kind of preference for their celebrity status, should we say?
The standard is the standard.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And if they don't go into it seeing that for what it is, then they shouldn't be doing it. It's that simple.
Yeah.
I'm conscious that we've used up our hour and we need to do our outro. But Phil, hang around and maybe you have got insight and wisdom into the one item that is on the agenda for the intro. But also, we do have a little bit of you can give us a mark maybe as we give you some final words. But my outro is this, Scott. Scott, I am about to plough into uncharted territory.
Can't wait! I'm so excited for this. So excited!
The good Mrs. Coates, she has taken it upon herself to leave me for 24 days, and she's going to Australia and leaving me in charge of the Coates Massive. You don't even know me and you're laughing. And so I woke in the night, and what I've been doing, I've been pretending that it's all fine because I thought the last thing she wants to do is worry, and I've just been going, it's fine.
In other words, you're in denial.
I've been in total denial until about 2 hours ago because she's going tomorrow. And I realised that I've never in my adult life bought toilet paper.
What?
Just never done it. I don't know how to start. I don't know. I mean, I've been down an aisle. Did you think
it just appeared? Did you think it was just like something that came in the house?
I don't know. Where do I go for toilet paper? I don't know.
And what make a toilet paper? Because you need to know the make. If you don't know the brand.
And ply. How many ply does one get?
Well, I mean, not so much supply, just a brand, I would say. The ply is less important. The brand is important, Al. Yeah.
Excellent.
I mean, it's not like you're not going to be incommunicado, is it? I mean, you will be for 24 hours while she's traveling.
Well, there is an element that I have told you about the time she got on the train to London and...
yes, and ended up somewhere else.
Yeah, so she was...
And that's to London. Yeah, Australia's further, I'm sure.
Well, so I just started work and I was working in London. She was going to come down and we just, my youngest daughter had just moved in, so she was only 2. And so she, right. So like the time I was in London and I was like, right, she's on the train now. And then I got a phone call about an hour and a half later going, Al, I've just come at the station. It says Edinburgh. And she'd got on.
Oh, that's a bad error.
Yeah,
that is that's 180 degrees wrong.
Yeah.
And so she literally so what was going to be a 3-hour journey turned into a 9-hour journey because she then had to throw herself on the mercy of the guard in Edinburgh. And so I am literally going to deliver. If I can, I'm going to get her onto an airplane and click the seatbelt in and say, "This is the right airplane. Don't get off until it's sunny." Basically. Bless her. Yeah, so I mean, who knows how
that's not very well saying that, but I'm assuming that she's not going to be on the one plane. She's going to have to transfer.
Do you know what? I've taken a great
not worried
step
about
of faith.
That.
I'm not
like,
worried.
Once she goes through security, she's the responsibility of the airline.
I've told the kids it's steak and chips every night for tea.
Oh.
Every night. We're going to be living the dream.
You're on the Atkins diet for 3 weeks then.
Yeah, blow the housekeeping the first 3 days. It's all going to be good. So that's what's going to happen. I might do a war diary. I might do a day 1 in the Coates house. Video log. Yeah, day 1. Yeah, it'll be like Lord of the Flies by about Friday, I reckon.
What, they'll all be dead? Flies?
They'll have set up they'll have formed a
an
People's
independent
Army.
People's Republic, and you'll be overthrown. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's just as well you don't foster anymore, Al, isn't it?
It's literally, I mean, my head will be on a spike and they'll be like standing naked in the garden over my dead body. Yeah,
absolutely.
No, like it.
I wish I'd planned a visit because I think that would have been a hilarious thing to see. I am literally going to be. I'm not going to be contacting you for the next 3 weeks. So any contact that we have over the next 3 weeks will be you contacting me because I'm just not going to annoy you. Bearing in mind, I know what it's like when I cope. I cope very well when the other half's not here. But I just have this vision of you. Being, it'll be like you will have cabin fever by Friday, I think.
Well,
I'm not going to add to that. I'm just not going to be responsible for any of the outcomes of.
But just watch the socials. Watch the skies. Watch the socials. The good Mrs. Watson, has she ever left you in charge?
Yeah. It's not gone well. I've been too busy making videos and social media content, and it's like there was one occasion when I made a video, it was a while ago, and she came up and went, "Oh, we've made a video," and she went, "That's wonderful. Why were our children wearing pajamas for the entire week I was away? Because I'd let them dress themselves." And I was like, "They were dressed. I don't see the problem." But I'm not very good unsupervised. It's fairly obvious.
Yeah,
but my daughter's always been in charge ever since she was about 4, so that's worked very well. You need a mature child.
4?
Yeah, no, at 4 she could outthink me, so that worked very well.
When my daughter was when Rosa was 3, I had to go and buy a shirt or something and some clothes, and I had to take her with her to chaperone me at 3 to pick clothes. And I said, I said, "Can I wear this and this?" And I held up 2 items of clothing. She went, and she looked like I was an idiot. I went, "No." And I was going, but why not? And she was going, because that there doesn't match with that there. And I was going, how do you know this?
No, yeah.
Where did it come from? And she went, how do you not know this?
Yeah,
and so
but to be fair, Al, number 1, you are colorblind, and number 2, you buy your socks from Screwfix. So, I mean, me and Paula have had the good Mrs. C. That is, we've had many conversations about your fashion sense, lack of fashion sense.
Al, I didn't know this because I'm colorblind too.
Excellent.
And so my wife's family are colorblind and my family are colorblind. So the only male in our family, and this isn't why we adopted him, the only male who's not colorblind is our adopted son. And he's got this superpower. It's like, what color is that? And he goes, blue. How does he know? It's amazing.
He's in league with the devil.
How did he learn how to do his colors? Incredible. He's got a lot of other skills, but that's his main one. He can tell me I look ridiculous. In fact, he did once say to me, he goes, "You're not to tell people we're related if you're going to dress like that." I'm just going to go and tell everybody I'm adopted straight away because you are so embarrassing. And I thought, yeah, okay, fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I don't know what. Yeah,
interesting.
Yes. That's a very good point to end on. End on.
Phil,
Phil, Scott and I have been preparing.
No, we haven't. I regret putting that in the chat now.
I have no idea. Danke, Phil. Es war mir eine Freude, dich der Show zu haben.
You were reading that from somewhere.
Of course I was.
Es war mir eine Freude, dich auf dem Show zu haben. Ja, es war mir auch eine Freude. Es hat mir ganz gut gefallen. Ja, doch.
Ja, ich bin ein Berliner.
Yeah. Oh, very good. You're a donut. Well done.
Yeah, I am a donut. Thank you, Scott. Come on.
Well, just for that, I did put something in French. However, I've deleted it now because, and I'll tell you this very brief story before we go. My message said, "It's been a pleasure chatting to you, Phil. Didn't know much about you. Feel like I know loads about you now, and I'm now going to unmute you from Twitter." That's what my French said, but. But can I just tell you a quick story? So
you're saying you're not going to unmute him?
No, I am going to unmute him. However, so my husband speaks fluent Spanish. And when we met, I was like, yes, I speak French and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, we went on holiday and we did Spain to France. And when we got to France, he's like, we need to eat. Come on then, and I was like, you can bugger off because I've not got the confidence to say it in public. I can write it and I can say it in my head, blah, blah. And so we went into the boulangerie and I was asked to ask for these sandwiches and I asked for them in English. Even though at that point I was probably quite confident speaking in French, but I just couldn't do it. So yeah,
mes oui.
Well, am I allowed an outro anecdote of our little
Please
man?
do.
As long as it's only 90 seconds.
Yeah, he used to call me Bill because he couldn't say Phil. Occasionally he calls me Dad, and then he started to call me Phil. And then we took him on holiday to France, and he worked out that in France I'm called Philippe. So on this holiday of 2 weeks in France, he kept calling me Philippe. We then came back to England, and then for the next 12 months, if we ever had anything like a croissant or a pain au chocolat, he reverted back to calling me Philippe.
Oh, really?
And it was like, how cute is that?
That is very cute.
Bless him.
Yeah.
Listen, I got l'initiative. Où est la caresse NCF?
Oh, it's all coming out now.
It is love, isn't it? The man who said he wouldn't understand it. But it's I would say that's quite a compliment considering some of the names that our children call us. So yeah. I'd say that's a win. That's a win. That's a win. Absolutely.
Yeah. Take it.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll get you a French slang dictionary. Phil, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Total chaos.
Thank
it's
you.
like herding sheep. Cat.
I think it's herding cats. You keep wanting to say sheep are meant to be herded.
Yes, exactly.
It's true. I'm under a lot of pressure. I am.
Okay. Fair play.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, Scott. As always, the pleasure was all yours.
Clearly.
And on that note,
enjoy your next 3 weeks, Al.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.